This is the true story of mysterious lights that have lured people into the wilderness, and sometimes never let them return. Deep in the northern forests of Saskatchewan, Canada, long before European settlers arrived, the Cree people knew of the dangers that came with the night. Their oral traditions spoke of the Starlight Spirits, glowing ethereal lights that would wander the forests after dark. But these weren't guides. They were a test. The elders would warn the young and the curious, do not follow what calls without a voice. They described the lights as floating orbs, intelligent and keenly aware of those who watched them. To follow one out of curiosity was to risk becoming lost forever, a ghost in the woods, another whisper on the wind. It was a warning that would echo through the centuries. As the 1800s brought fur trappers and hunters into these ancient lands, the legends took on a new, terrifying reality. Men, hardened by the wilderness and familiar with its every sound and shadow, began to report strange encounters. At night, from the edge of their campfires, they would see them, glowing orbs, drifting silently between the trees. The lights seemed almost playful, retreating when a person moved closer, only to reappear a little farther ahead, a silent invitation to give chase. But this game had deadly consequences. Records from the era tell of several hunters who vanished during their winter routes after reporting they would investigate the lights. When search parties went looking for them, what they found was even more unsettling. There were no tracks leading out of the area, no signs of a struggle, no indication of where the men went. All they found were footprints, going in circles. It was as if the forest itself had turned them around, leading them back to where they started over and over until they simply disappeared. Those who followed the lights and managed to return spoke of something deeply wrong with the forest where the orbs appeared. It was more than just getting lost. It was as if the laws of nature itself were being bent. Survivors described a strange and sudden effect that would descend upon them. All sound would vanish. The chirping of insects, the rustle of leaves, the call of distant animals, everything would fall into an unnerving, absolute silence. Their compasses, reliable tools of survival, would begin to spin erratically, the needle dancing wildly without pointing north. Distances became distorted. A landmark that seemed only 100 yards away would feel miles distant after an hour of walking. Many reported the chilling experience of walking for hours, pushing through dense undergrowth, convinced they were heading straight, only to find themselves standing right back where they had started. And all the while, the lights would wait, hovering patiently just beyond their reach, watching their futile struggle. The forest didn't just hide you. It felt like it didn't want to let you leave. By the early 20th century, the expansion of logging camps brought more people into these remote territories, and with them, more disappearances. Camp supervisors documented a disturbing pattern. Workers would go missing, often near areas where others had reported seeing the strange lights. The loggers, men who knew the woods intimately, would talk of the eerie silence that would fall over the forest just before the lights appeared. It was a quiet so profound, it felt like the world was holding its breath. Despite clear weather and the best efforts of experienced trackers, official search efforts consistently failed. Men would vanish without a trace from well-known terrain. The local population, a mix of indigenous communities and settlers, began to learn from these tragedies. They started avoiding specific corridors of the forest at night, marking them as places where the lights were known to hunt. These weren't just ghost stories told around a fire. They were practical warnings for survival in a land that held ancient secrets. As the years passed, the stories of the lights and the missing people became so persistent that they could no longer be ignored by the authorities. In the mid-1900s, official records from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police began to reflect these strange events. Police logs confirm multiple large-scale wilderness searches, launched for missing trappers, loggers, and travelers. The conclusions were always the same. No explanation could be found. There were no signs of animal attacks, no evidence of foul play, and in several baffling cases, no bodies were ever recovered. The person had simply been erased from the landscape. Behind the scenes, investigators would quietly note the recurring witness reports of unexplained lights in their private files. Publicly, however, they dismissed these accounts as folklore or misidentification. To admit that something inexplicable was luring people to their doom in the Canadian wilderness was an admission of powerlessness that no official was willing to make. The files were closed, but the lights, they remained. The modern era did little to dim the phenomenon. If anything, the increased traffic from hikers and backpackers from the 1970s to the 1990s only produced more witnesses. These new accounts added chilling details. Backpackers reported seeing the orbs change color, shifting from a brilliant white to a spectral blue or a pale, sickly green. The lights demonstrated an unnerving intelligence. They would react to movement, freezing in place when they were being watched, then darting away the moment a person looked away. Witnesses consistently described feeling an intense, paralyzing dread in the presence of the lights, an overwhelming sensation of being observed by something ancient and not of this world. Several hikers shared stories of narrowly escaping the forest after making the conscious decision to ignore the light's silent call. They spoke of turning their backs on the glowing orbs and walking determinedly in the opposite direction, fighting the urge to look back, feeling the unseen presence following them until they broke free of the tree line. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of these encounters isn't just the lights themselves, but the profound psychological effect they have on those who witness them. People who have come face to face with the Tarrare Lights and lived to tell the tale report a suite of disturbing symptoms. Many experience a phenomenon known as missing time, where they cannot account for minutes or sometimes hours of their experience. They recall seeing the light, and then suddenly it's an hour later and they're somewhere else in the forest with no memory of how they got there. This disorientation is often accompanied by a sudden, inexplicable panic that washes over them, an animalistic fear that screams, "Run!" Some of the most chilling reports describe hearing their own names being whispered on the wind, but without any actual sound. It's a voice that they hear inside their own head, a silent call from the light. For many, the horror doesn't end when they leave the woods. The experience follows them, manifesting as recurring nightmares for weeks, months, or even years after the encounter, a constant reminder of the intelligence that watched them from the dark. Over the decades, science has tried to offer rational explanations, but each one has failed. The first theory proposed was marsh gas, pockets of naturally occurring methane that can ignite and create ghostly lights. But this was quickly dismissed. The Tarrare Lights appear in dry, dense forests, often in the dead of winter, far from any swamps or marshes where such gas would form. Another suggestion was ball lightning, a rare atmospheric electrical phenomenon. However, ball lightning typically lasts for only a few seconds. The Tarrare Lights have been observed for minutes, even hours, and their movements appear controlled and intelligent, not random like a natural weather event. More modern theories like drones or secret aircraft are impossible, as the reports go back centuries before such technology existed. In the end, no consistent natural explanation has ever been able to account for the lights' intelligent movement, their interaction with observers, and their direct correlation with human disappearances. With science unable to provide an answer, we are left with the paranormal interpretations, born from the very land where the lights appear. Some believe they are spirit guides, testing those who enter the forest to see if they show respect for the land and its ancient rules. Others see them as trickster entities, malevolent spirits that find cruel amusement in luring humans into isolation and fear. A more modern take suggests they could be interdimensional orbs, phenomena from another reality that are momentarily slipping into ours, with the forest acting as a weak point between worlds. And then there is the belief that they are residual spirits, The manifestations of souls tied to this ancient ground, perhaps the very people who were lost to the lights long ago, now forced to reenact their fate. Whatever their origin, they are seen not as a natural event, but as a presence, an intelligence. Today, the sightings continue in the vast, deep woods of northern Saskatchewan. The locals, descendants of those who first learned the terrible rules of the forest, still refuse to follow strange lights in the night. The elders still say that the forest remembers all who enter it, and that it doesn't always let them go. The mystery of the Tarrare Lights endures, a chilling reminder that there are corners of our world that remain untamed, unexplained, and deeply dangerous. In the deep woods of Saskatchewan, the lights are still waiting, still watching, still leading the lost into the dark.